My husband thinks he's the father of our 27-year-old son, but a DNA test revealed a shocking truth I've hidden for 28 years. We have 2 children, 27 son and a 30 daughter, 4 grandchildren. We have been married for 32 years. I want to keep this as short as possible, but I am so scared of what is going to happen to our lives now this secret has come out. My son came and saw me a week ago. My husband was at work. We sat down, and I knew something was wrong, and I was concerned for him. I told him to just tell me what the problem was, and we will sort through whatever it was. He said he didn't know how to start, so he will just put it all on the table and see what I have to say. I was getting very concerned at this stage, never thinking that what he would tell me could destroy our lives. My son told me that he took an ancestry DNA test because, like his dad, he was interested in genealogy, and he wanted his kids to know where they came from and the history. I still hadn't clicked at that stage. I thought that it came back with a medical issue that may be present and expressed my thoughts. No, Mom, he said, that isn't the problem. The problem is that Dad has no common DNA. I started shaking and went into shock. He asked if his dad knows. I told him no, I didn't know until now. The secret I had kept for 28 years is no longer a secret. I knew that my son could have been the product of a mistake I had made early on in my marriage. But when he was born, he looked so much like my husband and I that I dismissed it and convinced myself he was his. The mistake, bad choice, was when we were going through a tough time with my husband working long hours, and we were struggling to get a deposit for a house. We were also trying for a second child. One of my husband's friends was in our lives as he was going through a breakup, and we were trying to be supportive. My husband was at work, and his friend and I was drinking and just talking about life. We got drunk, and yes, we had sex. I can't even remember it, and the next morning his friend and I was mortified and vowed never to bring it up again. It was such a long time ago, I cannot even really remember it. I dismissed it as a one-time mistake and have never been tempted to cheat again. Well, I fell pregnant, and here we are. My husband is such a loving man, and our marriage has always been strong. My son wants me to tell him, as he will find out soon enough through ancestry. How do I proceed? I am disgusted that this is going to destroy my husband, my entire family. I know I was a POS back then for what I did. I cannot erase that. But the hurt we are all going to go through, I cannot fathom. My husband has not found out yet, but I have to tell him before he finds out. Update 1. The week after my son's revelation felt like a nightmare I couldn't escape. Each day dragged on, every sound in the house echoing painfully. My husband remained blissfully unaware, going about his routines, laughing with our daughter over the phone and playing with the grandkids. He was the heart of our family, always so loving, and the thought of destroying that happiness filled me with dread. My son had grown distant since that fateful conversation. I could sense his struggle as he tried to process the shocking news. We both avoided each other, navigating a minefield of unspoken words and unacknowledged pain. I texted him occasionally, but he was curt, careful with his words. I didn't blame him. I had betrayed him in the most profound way. Every night I lay awake, unable to find peace. My mind raced with every possible scenario. What if he hated me? What if my husband left me? The guilt gnawed at my insides. I felt like a ghost in my own home, haunted by my past mistake. I could see it in my husband's eyes whenever he glanced my way, a mixture of confusion and betrayal that shattered my heart. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I resolved that I couldn't wait any longer. I had to face the truth. It was a Friday evening when I gathered the courage to bring it up. The kids had visited earlier, filling the house with laughter and joy, almost breaking my resolve to speak the truth. "Can we talk?" I asked, my voice trembling. My heart raced as he nodded, and we sat together in the living room, the air thick with tension. I wrapped my hands around a mug of tea, hoping the warmth would steady my trembling fingers. "Is something wrong?" he asked, concern etched on his face. I shook my head, struggling to find the words. How could I possibly explain the gravity of what I had to say? It's about our son, I managed to say, my heart pounding. I watched as his expression shifted, worry fluting his features. He took an ancestry DNA test. He furrowed his brow. Oh, did it come back with some medical issues? I almost laughed at how naive he sounded. No, I said, fighting back tears. The problem is that he doesn't share any DNA with you. The silence that followed felt suffocating. I could see realization dawning in his eyes, and as I confessed everything, the one-night mistake, the guilt that had haunted me for years, he remained quiet. Each word felt like a dagger, piercing the air between us. When I finished, he sat in stunned silence, his face a mask of disbelief. I could almost hear the gears turning in his mind as he tried to process the enormity of my confession. Then, without a word, he stood up and walked out of the room. The sound of the front door closing behind him echoed like a final verdict. I sat there for hours, waiting for him to return, but he never did. I felt the weight of my confession pressing down on me, the reality of my actions beginning to sink in. I had shattered the life we built together, and I had no idea how to put the pieces back together. Update 2. The days turned into a blur of pain and confusion. My husband didn't come home that night or the next. I tried calling him, sending texts filled with apologies and explanations, but he didn't respond. The silence hung heavy in the air, thick with tension. My heart ached with every passing moment. On the third day, my son reached out, his message terse and heavy with emotion. Dad is really upset, Mom. He doesn't want to talk to you right now. His words felt like a punch to my gut. I knew I had to face the consequences of my actions, but the thought of my husband shutting me out completely was unbearable. I spent hours pacing the house, wondering what I could say to make things right. The memories of our years together flooded my mind, the laughter, the love, and the countless moments that had defined our family. Now, it felt like a fragile glass ornament, ready to shatter at the slightest touch. Finally, after days of waiting and worrying, my husband returned home. He looked exhausted, his eyes red-rimmed and hollow. My heart raced as I watched him walk past me, heading straight to our bedroom. I followed, desperate for a chance to talk. "Can we please talk?" I pleaded, but he didn't respond. He locked the door, and I could hear the muffled sounds of him moving around inside. I felt helpless, my heart breaking as I realized how far apart we had grown in such a short time. Hours passed, and the weight of the silence was suffocating. I wanted to scream, to shake him awake from this nightmare we were living. Finally, he emerged, his expression a mix of anger and sadness. "I can't deal with this right now," he said, his voice low and strained. "I need space." The following days turned into weeks, and my husband still didn't want to talk. We coexisted in the same house, but it felt like we were living in different worlds. Our son stopped coming by, avoiding us both, and I couldn't help but feel the deepening rift in our family. Finally, one night, after another long day of silence, my husband turned to me. "Do you still love him?" he asked, his voice trembling. The question caught me off guard, and for a moment, I didn't know how to respond. "Of course not," I said, my heart racing. "I love you. You're my everything." But I could see the doubt in his eyes, and I knew my words weren't enough to heal the wounds I had inflicted. Then, just when I thought things couldn't get worse, a new development shocked us both. My husband had been digging into his own ancestry, trying to make sense of everything when he stumbled upon something we never anticipated. "I got a call from the DNA company," he said one evening, his face pale. "Our son isn't biologically connected to either of us, but it turns out neither of us are directly connected to his biological parents, either." My heart raced as I processed what he was saying. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. What do you mean, neither of us are his parents? The DNA matches show a disconnect. He's not just not my son, he's not that guy's son either. It's like he was never even in the picture. I felt a wave of confusion wash over me. What are you saying? This doesn't make any sense. It means he was conceived under unusual circumstances, more than just a one-night stand. He looked at me, his expression shifting from anger to bewilderment. What if there's something more to this? What if the truth is buried deeper than we thought? My mind raced with possibilities, questions swirling like a storm. Could it be that our son was not just the result of my mistake, but a twist of fate that neither of us could have seen coming? We spent hours discussing every angle, every potential truth that could come to light. As the night wore on, the lines between betrayal and love blurred, and I began to see a flicker of hope. Perhaps this was a chance to rebuild, to confront the past and reclaim our future. As we both began to understand the implications of this new revelation, the fear of losing everything transformed into a determination to seek the truth. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but if our son wasn't anyone's biological child, then perhaps there was a way to heal and create a new narrative for our family, one rooted in love, trust, and honesty. In the coming days, I resolved to reach out to our son, to confront the past, and to seek answers that could finally set us free. Together, we would unravel the truth, no matter how painful it might be. I hoped, deep down, that through this journey, we could reclaim our family and rediscover the love that had initially brought us together. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps this twist of fate could lead us back to each other, reminding us of the unbreakable bond we had forged over 3 decades. Together, we would face whatever came next, determined to rebuild our family and heal the wounds of the past. Update 3. As the days passed, I knew I had to act. My husband and I were stuck in this strange limbo, and I felt a growing urgency to understand what had happened. Our son was in turmoil, and if I didn't reach out, the silence could stretch on indefinitely. I decided to call him, my heart racing as I dialed his number. When he picked up, his voice was cautious, almost guarded. "Mom, I don't think I'm ready to talk." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "Please, I just want to understand. We need to figure this out together." After a long pause, he finally agreed to meet. I chose a small cafe near his apartment, a place filled with memories of happier times. I arrived early, my stomach in knots, replaying every moment leading up to this meeting in my mind. How would he react? Would he be angry? Would he blame me? When he walked in, I saw the weight of the world on his shoulders. His eyes were red, his expression clouded with hurt. We sat across from each other, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. The air was thick with unspoken words and emotions. "Dad is still really upset," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "He doesn't understand how this could happen." I nodded, feeling a fresh wave of guilt wash over me. "I know," I said softly, "but we need to focus on what's next." As we talked, I could see the tension slowly easing. We shared stories, memories that made us laugh, moments that reminded us of the bond we had built. But the shadow of the truth loomed over us, and I knew we had to confront it. "Mom, what if this is all a mistake?" he asked, his voice trembling. "What if I was switched at birth or something?" The thought sent chills down my spine. "I don't know," I admitted, "but we need to find out the truth." Determined to uncover the mystery, we both agreed to reach out to the DNA company. They had experts who could help us understand what had gone wrong. As we left the cafe, I felt a sense of purpose. Maybe together we could navigate this complicated web of lies and secrets. The next week was filled with tension, but we leaned on each other for support. My husband remained distant, still processing everything. I felt helpless, wishing I could ease his pain, wishing I could take back the past. But I couldn't. I had to focus on our son and the truth we were unraveling. When the call finally came from the DNA company, I held my breath. They explained the situation in a way that was both reassuring and alarming. It turned out that while our son's DNA didn't match either of ours, there had been a mix-up in the records. A clerical error had led to confusion in the ancestry results. "Are you saying he is ours after all?" I asked, my voice shaky with disbelief. "Yes," the representative replied. "He is biologically yours, but the results didn't reflect that accurately. There are factors at play that we are still investigating." I hung up, feeling a strange mix of relief and confusion. I immediately called my son. "You're still our son," I told him, my heart racing. "The results were a mistake. You belong with us, no matter what." When I told my husband, I saw a flicker of hope in his eyes for the first time in weeks. The burden of uncertainty had lifted, and we both realized that despite the pain, we still had our family. It wouldn't be easy, but perhaps this revelation could be the first step toward healing. As we sat together, talking through our emotions, I felt a sense of unity returning. We still had a long road ahead, but at least we were on the same path again. The future felt uncertain, but the love we had for one another was strong enough to guide us through. We decided to take things slow, to reconnect as a family. My husband and I began to communicate openly, sharing our fears and hopes. I reached out to our daughter, inviting her to join us for dinner. It was time to bring the family back together, to remind ourselves of the love that had always been the foundation of our lives. As we moved forward, I knew that our journey wasn't over. We still had to confront the past and deal with the emotions tied to that fateful night. But together, we could face whatever challenges lay ahead, hand in hand, united by love and a determination to rebuild our family. This unexpected twist had brought us closer, showing us that even in the darkest moments, love could guide us back to one another.